Hello, and welcome to The Public Good. This is Tom V.A. Peart from Partnership for the Public Good, or PPG, which unites 325 community organizations working to build a better Buffalo. We're delighted to join you every Tuesday at 10:30 a.m. on Power 96.5 FM and Mix 1080 a.m. You can also watch us live on our Facebook page at facebook.com/PPG Buffalo. Don't forget to follow PPG on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and of course, you can always get great information on our website, ppgbuffalo.org. Our guests today are Franchelle Parker, Executive Director of Open Buffalo, and Tyrell Ford, Lead Community Organizer at Voice Buffalo. Normally, I start with, how are y'all doing? Thank y'all for being here. I am very thankful that y'all are both here, just given the tragedy that happened this weekend as Buffalo continues to make both national and global news. Just as a reminder, though we definitely don't need it, there was a shooting that took place by a white supremacist who committed an act of not only evil but also domestic terrorism at the Tops on Jefferson. 10 people lost their lives. 3 were wounded. This happened this past Saturday. I know that there's since been a number of community events to come together. Voice Buffalo hosted a community healing on Sunday, also that had a prayer vigil that united communities. And I know that there were other things that are happening and things that will happen. So when I ask how you both are doing, it's with great sincerity, just because I know that trauma comes with what happened.
I am doing horribly, and I think as a Black professional, a woman, we are conditioned not to fully talk about our emotions and push through, get tasks done, keep your hands busy. So I think that this is probably the first time in my professional life I feel supported enough to be able to say I am an absolute basket case right now. I can't imagine what cousins and uncles and mommies and daddies are feeling like in this moment, because I know how I feel. Mm-hmm. Our offices are located on Jefferson and Utica. Mm-hmm. Both of my babies, 1 and 3, go to the daycare at the 1100 block of Jefferson. And to hear the shooter talk about leaving Tops and just shooting people on Jefferson as he drives is like, that could have been me picking up my babies. Our Jefferson Avenue family has been damaged, hurt, disrupted in a way that I could never even imagine. I am not okay. I can't stop crying. This is probably, because y'all were making me laugh before this, but this is probably the first time in hours that I haven't just been crying. So I'm not doing okay. Thank you for asking me. Thank you for creating a space where we can be comfortable with how we're actually feeling and doing in the moment.
And thank you for saying that, because I think often, especially also like as a Black woman too, I know that I am very bad at always going on autopilot and just sitting and knowing that it's okay not to be okay, because that's something that is not told to us very often, and it's something that we need to reiterate, that it's okay not to be okay. And then I hope that healing does come in all of its forms. And Ford?
Yeah, I'm not doing too well. Just the thought of sending my kids back to school. My wife is a teacher, and knowing that I got a text this morning and knowing that my wife was deeply crying, and her coworkers, most of them Black, some white, were just sobbing because they didn't want to be back in that space. Not yet. It's too early. Like, you didn't give people the proper amount of time to grieve. They probably not even starting to grieve yet. And when we were doing the vigil yesterday, on my way to the vigil, tears just flowed down my face because I was like, I don't know how to show up in this space because it's still fresh, it's still raw, and these emotions are going to be there for a while, and we're not going to know when's the right time to understand and deal with them, and that's our community. We don't face trauma head on, and I don't know what to say, and I just feel like myself, I'm about to cry now because it's heavy, and my heart is heavy for those families because you never want to lose anybody in that nature. So it's tough. It is a processing moment.
Definitely. And I know for me, I don't live in the neighborhood that was impacted, but it was very triggering and also traumatizing. Healing as well, but even just to arrive on the scene on Sunday of where the community healing was going to be, because I'm not from Buffalo, I'm from Baltimore, but even just seeing tops in the background brought up memories that I've been in a grocery store where a shooting took place, not to this magnitude, but just something that happened more than 20 years ago without aging myself brought tears to me as well. The first dead body I ever saw was behind a grocery store at 9. And so just certain aspects of this tragedy were also triggering, and it hurts my heart thinking about those who lost a loved one or those, who had a loved one thankfully survive, but just the trauma that comes with that in community as well. And so if we could hold space, I would like to just get y'all's thoughts about Sunday, because with all of the cameras there, and I know that media has to come and cover stories, there's a very different feeling that doesn't translate to the things you read and the things that you see. And so I wanted just to get your thoughts on what the feeling was, just being present with community during the healing event.
So my first initial thought was I didn't want the cameras there because they're just going to leave in a couple of days, couple of weeks, and it's going to be the community left to heal itself. And that's the way it has always been. You show up for a moment, then you leave. But we're still there. We're still having to deal with the impact that was brought upon our doorstep. And it's difficult. It was difficult to see the power struggle in that space. It was difficult to hear the deep sorrows. It was just difficult. I can't put it into context really.
It felt like a feeding frenzy. Again, like being in that community, we're constantly crying for media and people to come and help and to elevate our causes and the things that the mission of Open Buffalo, things that we've been fighting for literally decades. Y'all have turned a blind eye to. We hosted a group of international leaders last week on Thursday. And they were from a European country, and they were really struggling to understand how race is manifesting itself in Buffalo. It's just like, well, slavery isn't a thing anymore, right? And it wasn't coming from an ill place. It was really like a place of like, I'm really trying to understand. I believe you. I'm just trying to understand. And I'm like, I can't get through all this in an hour, right? But you could tell it was a level of, I don't know if this is really true. You might just be exaggerating. So even though it didn't, fast forward to Sunday, it doesn't feel good to feel like there's cameras as you're trying to grieve and heal. But I'm also like, let's knock the lid off of these insidious problems that we've been facing as a community for decades that no one wants to talk about. Like now we're talking about it in the context of one 18-year-old kid. we can talk about that, but we also have to talk about the lead crisis. We have to talk about criminal justice reform. We have to talk about the fact that you have starved our community of resources for decades, and that's why 14208 looks the way that it looks, right? It didn't just happen because one person came from the Binghamton area. Like, yes, let's talk about that, but since we have a platform, can we also talk about this agenda that we have? And we have some ask ready, right? Because we can't go back to the way things were on Friday. Otherwise, our heroes, our elders that have now transcended, their lives will be in vain if we don't take this opportunity to fix our communities. So if it means the media staring over us as we grieve, I'll take it. And I'll counsel it out later, right? The trauma that did to me, right? We'll counsel that out later.
Yeah, and so taking the lid off, in case anybody is listening to our conversation who might not be familiar with Buffalo, or maybe they are in Buffalo, who are saying, this isn't us, and they perhaps haven't been looking around. There's been a PPG report, and this isn't just a shameless plug, that's been resurging, and it's called A City Divided, A Brief History of Segregation in Buffalo, written by Anna Blotto. And so it's making rounds again, and it really highlights how decades, and I emphasize decades, of policies devastated communities, including and especially Buffalo's East Side, that's primarily Black. And so a couple takeaways that I just want to be able to share is, of all the people who identify as Black in the city of Buffalo, roughly 85% live east of Main Street. In the city of Buffalo, there are 51 census block groups that have limited access to supermarkets, and every single one is located east of Main Street, which particularly raises both significance and concerns about why the TOPS was targeted in the first place. And then things like spatial segregation cut off access to higher paying jobs, and development projects like the Kensington Expressway cut the East Side community in half. And so as an East Side resident yourself, what are some things that you wish to amplify beyond this tragedy while holding space for the lives that we lost that you feel media might be missing?
What is the media missing? Everything. Yeah. I'm just joking. One, I don't want us to feel, yes, we are victims of white supremacy and white nationalism. Like, we have to start off with that, but we can't stay there, right? That we have the capacity to not only restore what was taken from us, but also develop the holistic, beautiful communities that we're all in this room at least fighting for. That is a thing, right? Yeah. We can get there. I'm sorry, I lost you said, what was your question again?
Just if we're taking the lid off of media looking beyond what happened on Saturday, while still obviously holding space for the loved ones that folks lost and community lost, what are some things that folks might not have been paying attention to that are things that we're fighting for, we want amplified?
One major thing is the environmental crisis that we're facing. And when we talk about environmental or ecological crises, especially in Black communities, a lot of people just think about pollution. Yeah. Right? Like, no. It's so much deeper, right? We're talking about our extractive industrial history here in Western New York and lead. Right. For decades, they're telling us, like, make sure your kids don't eat the paint. Right. And like this narrative that is just like bad moms is just allowing kids to lick window seals. Right. Not knowing that, we're sending our kids outside to play, and the lead is literally infused in the ground, the soil that we're sending our babies out to play with, and the impact that that's having on our young people and communities of color. That's an East Side problem, right? When we talk about the rates of asthma and the impact of the 33 ripping through a Black community, That's a Black issue, right? Mm-hmm. So when we're talking about what our collective strategies, we need resources. Mm-hmm. There are elected officials from all across the globe that's now paying attention to the city of Buffalo. Newsflash, we need help. Okay. We need resources. We need jobs. Right. Mm-hmm. And that takes, like, there are some solutions there. So I would say that's the biggest thing. We've been talking about gun violence in our community for far too long. Where the guns aren't being made on the east side of Buffalo. Yeah. We know where the guns are coming from. There are certain states, right? So, like, where is the strategy to make sure, and that won't prevent another Saturday from happening, right? But again, that there's been deeply systemic racial issues happening in our community where there's some solutions to it, right? And some of that is, if President Biden is paying attention to this show, we need federal gun reform, right? We need real anti-violence protections for our communities. So that's a few of the things, but there are many, many issues that I think that would benefit the East Side.
For sure.
So I would add on to that is we do need jobs. The system has perpetuated us to be pigeonholed into a certain, what I'm looking for is clean slate. Let's use clean slate as an example.
Yeah.
It will increase our economic impact if people who are formerly convicted of a crime can get jobs to bring back to their communities. If we can bring back to our communities, we can rebuild our communities. But being locked out of jobs that we are often qualified for leave us to look at other avenues to bring in income, and that's not fair for one side of the town to be targeted for the criminal justice system. And me personally, I've been impacted by that, and I see my brothers and sisters impacted by that, and that is a part of the problem is our community is often targeted. This man came from Binghamton and targeted us, and he passed. I'm from Syracuse. He drove past Syracuse. That could have been my family in Syracuse targeted, but for some reason he chose to drive past two major cities in New York State and come to Buffalo.
To your point, because I think that there's a narrative. I think that there's a beauty and the resilience and history here is symbolic. We look at the history of Jefferson Avenue, like that's some king, queen, kingdom, motherland stuff that's happened on Jefferson Avenue. Like people that are coming in now, they're like, wait, the Bill Stadium used to be on Jefferson? Yes. Like Jefferson is the lifeline, the economic corridor in the 60s and 70s. All of the Black-owned businesses that made Buffalo thrive. Like all of that is Jefferson Avenue. Doris Records, when James Brown couldn't find a hotel that would house him, he slept upstairs at Doris Records, right? Like there's such a rich history and culture to Jefferson Avenue. That attack was symbolic, right? Like I'm gonna try to get you in the heart. So that's what that to me, when I think about all the potential, or you could have drove an hour away to Harlem or Brooklyn, right? Like, so you didn't have to drive all the way to Buffalo in particular to a grocery store that our elders fought so hard in order to get in the first place. That's all symbolic. Yeah. But, we'll come back. Yeah. For sure.
And so going back to the we need more resources call, which I feel has been a never-ending call with community, with organizations, with advocates, activists, directly impacted folk. And so we are in budget season here in the city of Buffalo, where I believe Common Council has until the 22nd of this month, which is a Sunday. So I don't know if they're going to do anything on the weekend. So let's just say Friday, potentially, to pass or not pass the 2022-2023 recommended budget. And so I'm curious if y'all think, and obviously we're not doing a deep dive in this today because we're having a bigger conversation, if you feel like since budgets are seen in many cases as being a reflection of a moral document where your heartstrings, where your values and your concerns are, do you feel enough is being done with the budgets? Or if it's not, what should Common Council do now in the few days they have to pass it to make sure that they're prioritizing communities, especially those who have been historically excluded and exploited? You want to start off with that? You want me to start off with that?
Definitely will start off because I am a first-time home buyer, and I do not want my taxes raised.
Come on.
I don't make enough. Don't want more tax. Don't want to make more payments. So if I have anything to say about that, I say don't raise our taxes because when you was running for election and you said you wouldn't raise the taxes, now all of a sudden you want to raise the taxes. Like, make up your mind. Which one is it? So, me personally, I wouldn't want my taxes raised.
That first time home buyer as well. Don't raise my taxes. Let's say that again. Don't raise my taxes. But it's just like I feel like that is going to have a crushing impact on the very communities that we've been talking about. With inflation, people are already feeling anxiety at the pump. How am I going to stretch this dollar? Like, we're not seeing in cost of living increases in our paychecks. Most of the time, our organizations, our businesses are holding the line, right? So where is this extra money going to come from? So that's my reflection on that it's going to have a disproportionate impact on middle class and working class families disproportionately. I agree that we, as a city, as a region, we have to put our money where our mouth is. And the things that we say we value, we have to support it. If we don't breathe life into the things, and life is resources, life is clean water and healthy food. If we're not breathing life into all of those things, we're going to watch it slowly die.
Yeah.
So I can't, unfortunately, I'm not an elected official. Right. So I can't tell an elected where they get the resources from, but I can tell you what we need here on the ground, and you make it happen. You got to go do a shakedown of a corporation. I don't know what you have to do, but I can tell you that our communities are in dire need. And if the budget isn't reflecting how to keep communities and people and families healthy and alive, I don't know what we need to do then.
And just circling back, it's been touched on, and we have a couple minutes before we have to close. This went too fast. Is that I know in the realm of pandemic, even taking away Saturday, a lot of people like to look to crime and just pointing out that crime is up not only in Buffalo, but across the nation. Yeah. Also in places that do not have bail reform measures in place. So I feel like that needs to be emphasized, but we're not going to talk about that here because that could be a separate conversation. But crime is also a symptom of something bigger, and that's poverty. And poverty, to me, is a policy choice. So it's very good to hear how y'all would like those who are in charge and have the power to do right by community, what they can do to invest in community. And so we have a couple minutes, and so we're going to do 30-second final sort of like elevator pitches to see what's going on at Open Buffalo that you want to share and what's going on at Voice Buffalo that you want to share. So we'll start with Fran.
Okay. This week we are pivoting everything, and we'll be outside of our office at 1327 Jefferson Avenue, passing out food food bags. Thank you to the co-op for your donation. So we'll be passing that out to the community. We're looking for volunteers. If you want to put on your rain jacket and some boots and pass out flyers to the surrounding community, we want to let them know the resources that are available in regards to mental health, trauma services, and also food access. So we're looking for volunteers to help pass out flyers.
Nice. Thank you.
Well, look no further than right next to you, because we are trying to do the same thing, because we need to unify as a city to get this information out.
Amen.
We are pivoting. We had so much lined up for this week, but we said, scrap that. Let's focus on our home base. And that is what we're doing for the rest of this week.
Well, I thank you both so much, just given the emotional trauma, physical trauma, and just everything, and having to be in direct response to a lot of the needs of the community and showing up, just for taking time to be here. I do want to remind people quickly about budget hearings that are taking place May 17th at 11 a.m. and May 18th at 10 a.m. in room 1417 in Buffalo City Hall. For more information, you can visit the Buffalo Common Council website or the Facebook page. This is Tom V. Peart with the Partnership for the Public Good, or PPG for short, which unites over 325 organizations working to build a better Buffalo. Join us again next week for a discussion with Common Council member Chris Scanlon on Tuesday, May 24th at 10:30 a.m. on Power 96.5. It's the Public Good Tuesday at 10:30 a.m. on Power 96.5 FM and Mix 1080 AM. Thanks so much.